This episode contains material that might be triggering for some. If you need to stop the podcast at any time to take care of yourself, please do so.
If you need support, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988. Dialectical behavior therapy was created in the 1980s by Marsha Linehan in Seattle, Washington.
Today, DBT is taught all over the world.
We're two therapists who believe everyone can benefit from DBT skills.
I'm Kate.
I'm Michelle.
And this is DBT and Me. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
And welcome to our monthly episode. We're very excited today to confuse the fuck out of you guys by having a guest on the show with the exact same first name as me. Thankfully, we differ in the last name. We have Kate Mageau here on the podcast today, talking about her recently released book, Rose-Colored Glasses, and how to utilize DBT for navigating and surviving toxic relationships, which is a pretty, I would say, important and heavy topic, both, which, of course, dialectics, right from the start. We're already getting to it. But before I let Kate go more into who she is and why she's here, etc., I do want to go ahead and do our little promotion for the month. This month, we're hoping you'll go and check out the Facebook group. If you're someone who chooses to participate in social media, no pressure if you're someone wise enough not to. I do appreciate that, and hats off to you. We'd love to have you come and join the Facebook group. We know we say that at the end of every episode, but there's been a hot minute since we talked about what you can do there. There's a lot of community support there. Honestly, I went and checked. There's 5,600 people right now that are a part of the group. And it's people posting great resources. There's good and fun and funny memes. There's questions being posed. People, both professional and other folks who are just, navigating DBT as a layperson, giving great advice and answering questions. It gives Michelle and I an opportunity both to respond to you guys and also to get material for the Q&As. We have highlights of our merchandise from the store on Mondays, all sorts of fun stuff going on over in the Facebook group. So definitely wanted to give a moment to highlight that one. But yeah, I'm just very excited to get to this. I mean, Michelle, I don't know. It's not very often we just collect guests in the wild.
I know.
And so I was pretty excited that you're like, that networking thing? I got us a guest, which was pretty nifty. So yeah, just excited to, if there's anything else you want to add, Michelle, otherwise I'll just cede the stage to you, Kate, and hear more about who you are and what you're here to talk about.
Yeah, I say let's pass it off to Kate to introduce herself. And yeah, we're just really excited to have you here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Yes, I'm Kate Mageau, she, her, and I am also a therapist. And I wrote this book, Rose-Colored Glasses, which is a part memoir, part self-help that basically it's how to learn about how to heal from toxic relationships through a story. So people tend to learn better through a story, or it's just a different way to learn, but it is teaching the psychological mechanisms of what happens in a relationship through seeing it in a story. And then after every chapter, I explain what it is with my therapist hat on. So it's first my hat of being in the experience, and then my therapist had to explain everything afterward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we love that format because it actually kind of gives a nod to the other podcast that Kate and I co-host called The Couch and the Chair, because that's exactly what we do there. We share personally about a topic first, and then we put our therapist hat on, and then we give suggestions and tips and things like that. So I love that you're doing that within the book, which is awesome. So we start off every time that we have a guest on the podcast. There are two main questions that we start by asking. So I'm going to ask one, and then Kate's going to ask one. First question is, when did you first come across DBT, and what drew you to it?
Yeah, I first learned about it in grad school. A therapist came to present to our class, and she gave a whole explanation about what it was. And she said that it's something that can be used for more stubborn, more difficult to treat kinds of situations. And I thought that was really cool to have all these tools to be able to help more people than through some more broadly known and used techniques.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome.
Fabulous. And then the next one is my, I don't know, because I like to see the both sides of things. What's your favorite and least favorite thing about DBT? Doesn't have to be the same thing, I guess. So that sounds just ambiguous there.
Yeah, no, that's the dialectic, right? It's the good and the bad of the differences. So the first thing is that there's a lot of pieces to it, and there's a lot of commonality in some other approaches. Like I also use a lot of ACT therapy, and so they both have the mindfulness and the values and the therapeutic relationship and the validation that's in a lot of other therapeutic approaches too. So I like that there's like a bridge into learning it because there's similarities, and then there's like a lot of tools you can choose on top of that.
Yeah.
And then the difficult thing for me, I work by myself in private practice and it's just me. And so while I do technically have a certification in it and I have learned it, I don't apply it as much as I wish I did because it's just me. And so I'm not doing all the rest of it. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. It's funny for how deep in DBT Michelle and I are. I, at least speaking for myself, will say I don't use a huge amount of it with my individual clients either. So I definitely understand that that's one of the last places to reach.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to start I guess we could say, official questions for you after our introductory questions. It's kind of a big one to start off with, but can you tell us a little bit about like your history with toxic relationships and how that personal experience inspired you to write your book? I mean, I just think because Kate and I, which is still so weird, even though it's been now, we were realizing almost, I think, 2 years since our book came out, with being an author, right? There's always kind of that moment where you go, I will write a book about this. So, like, I'm curious to know what that moment was for you. Just a little bit of what got you to that point.
Yeah. So when I got out of my toxic relationship, I lasted about 5 years. I was married. I went to therapy. I went to a domestic violence advocacy agency, and I got a lot of support at the support group. It's where I learned the Bill of Rights, which you'll see at the end of this episode. And it is where I learned about all the different psychological mechanisms. And so firstly, in that group, I learned that 1 in 3 people experience a toxic relationship. Depending on the studies, it could be 1 in 4 or 1 in 3. But it's a lot. It's a lot. And I was like, how did I not know about these things? How did I not know how frequent this happens? And then through my therapist at the time, I, thought that I didn't have anger as an emotion. So she got me in touch with my anger. She said, watch In and Out, or not In and Out, Inside Out, watch Inside Out and get in touch with your anger. And when I got in touch with my anger, I was like, this cannot be that 1 in 3 people experience this and we don't know about it. And I need to do something about it. I went to graduate school to become a therapist and started writing my book. And I started writing the book first and then applied for grad school. And then when I was at the end of grad school, I started writing in the explanation sections to go, here's the information behind the story.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So you kind of wrote the memoir part first, and then you added in the explanation sections.
A couple years later. Yes.
Wow. Okay. That's fascinating to hear your process, because that's one of the things that I loved about I'll just say this, like, quick little plug. The first thing that drew me in about your book when you shared it were the chapter titles, because I love that you just chose like a single word for each chapter. I don't know why I like that so much. But then when I actually started going into the book a little bit more, just really seeing that balance between the memoir and the, explanation. I just think it's such a cool format that's really unique. So I suppose on that note, we'd love to have you read a little bit of the book so that our listeners can get a taste of what it would be like if they decide to go ahead and get a copy themselves.
Love this. Thank you so much. So I'm going to read from, and just letting you all know, so, I'm not like giving away so much of the story. But anyways, I'm going to start towards the end of chapter 13 and read the last few pages of that, and then a couple pages into the explanation. So it's page 187. Actually, the formatting and the page numbers changes. It's near that.
I understand that, definitely.
Okay, so in the beginning of this chapter, I'm explaining, I'm going through a very fun, detailed explanation of cooking a meal. So this is chapter 13, cooking. Okay. I brought the plates to the living room coffee table where he was playing his favorite violent video game. With my plate in one hand, brown steak, white potatoes, and green, red, and yellow broccoli, and his in the other, brown steak, white potatoes, and 2 or 3 meandering pink peppercorns amongst a sea of black and white ones, and placed them on the table. I wanted to get his attention without disturbing him, so I sat on the couch and gently rubbed his arm and nuzzled against his neck. I gestured with a sweep of my arm a la Vanna White and said, while proudly grinning, "Dinner is ready." He looked at me through one eye and briefly through the other to acknowledge my presence and the dinner I cooked sitting in front of him, then averted his glance back to the TV while saying, without looking at me, "Hang on, there's just a few more minutes left in this match." I tried to conceal my pout as I busied myself to ensure all the extra flavors he might need to smother his steak's flavors were on the table for him, like salt, pepper, butter, and hot sauce, and Johnny's seasoning salt. He already had his favorite beer in his hand, but I knew it must have been warm by then, so I brought him a new cold one. I noticed his match was ending, so I stroked his arm with mine, nuzzled against him again, and placed his cold new beer within fingertip distance. I tried to be gentle and cautious, but after a few minutes of him ignoring me, I grew impatient. "Dinner is ready!" I chirped and watched his eyes lower to judge his plate. His eyes and brows darted between the plates and our patio. I saw his muscles move toward the patio, and suddenly saw his chin jet forward in that direction. He cautiously turned back to the plate, and then to me. "Thank you for putting in all this effort. It's just that, well, we don't have a grill, and it's just not the same, and my dad uses Johnny's, and that's really the best." I had been cooking nearly an hour. I didn't mind the time because I enjoyed it, though I definitely minded his lack of optimism and enthusiasm in my cooking. I felt my shoulders deflate toward my toes. I tried to find some semblance of pride for the meal I had prepared that he debased before tasting. I meekly smiled back to him and gently tugged on his right shirt sleeve. Somewhere in between a whisper, a whine, and a plead, I said, "I know, honey, but there are other flavors out there, and we do have community grills, but we still need to buy charcoal and use it when it's warm enough outside. In the meantime, I thought I would try and make us a nice meal and use some of the cooking skills I've been reading about and learning." I breathed heavily before I proceeded. I asked, "Will you please try it?" He frowned, stood up toward the doors to the right, and said, "Sure, I just need to have a smoke first." He went outside for a few minutes, and after a few minutes and a bite or two of my broccoli, I joined him. I couldn't handle the anxiety of his anticipated return. We exchanged some nondescript words and eventually went back inside to eat together. He gently scraped the sauce off his steak and then shoveled a large bite into his mouth. He shrugged his shoulders and mimicked shivering to show that it was cold as he told me with his mouth open, "It's cold." I raised my right eyebrow to meet Orion's belt and lowered my left shoulder to meet the Grand Canyon. So it's obviously your fault," I gestured back to him without saying a word. He finally finished chewing and then concocted a half smile on his face. It was half appreciation and half feigned gratitude attempting to shine through the full displeasure. He then broadly smiled and said, "Thank you." He deeply breathed and then continued with a raised eyebrow and smirk in his cheek. "I mean, it's not my dad's, but I guess it'll work." He laughed. "It'll do, pig. It'll do." I humbly smiled and accepted it. It was all I could hope for, even though his half acceptance was accompanied by his demeaning joke. We peacefully ate our steaks and then did the dishes. I did the dishes. Over time, I eventually ended up doing the dishes for 90% of the meals I cooked, despite that he said he enjoyed at least 50% of them. Side note, he had agreed to do the dishes when he enjoyed the meal. Over the next few months and the course of our marriage, I continued to use the Epicurious app to teach myself how to cook. Each week, I chose a new flavor profile region, chose meals and recipes, and purchased and learned about the spices and flavors from that part of the world. I also noticed recipes from different areas had different preparation techniques, so I learned how to do each one needed for each recipe. He was never satisfied, and I was never satisfied that he wasn't, but I was always still happy to have learned something new. I wanted to cook what would make him happy, but I also knew he would only be happy if I cooked his standard burgers, pizzas, and chicken strips. If I had to cook those same things for him every week, I would have lost all desire to cook, especially given the level of gratitude I had come to expect. I continued to find ways to attempt to compromise and appease both of us. And the explanation is short-ish. This is the explanation chapter. This chapter illustrates the subtle manipulation and emotional abuse that I didn't recognize was occurring at the time. I had so many expectations for how I was supposed to be a good wife. Some of them came from society, some from myself, and some from him. He never said that I had to cook or in fact ever wanted me to, but I felt that going out to eat or eating boxed food for every meal was unhealthy and expensive. I also firmly believed that cooking was a necessity for our daily lives, so I just did my best to do it in a way that would appease both of us. The problem was that Jason would never be satisfied, which is part of the classic case of an abuser. Abusers constantly move the goalposts, so their partners are always trying to live up to expectations that can never be met. This keeps the partner in a constant state of feeling not good enough, which lowers self-esteem, which then lowers the partner's self-confidence in holding their boundaries about what is acceptable in a relationship. This lowered self-confidence also increases feelings of dependency upon the abuser because the partner often feels that they are not good enough to be with someone else instead, and so they do not even consider it. This is emotional abuse. I'm just going to skip to the end. At this time, it was still early in the marriage, and I was determined to make our relationship work. I literally learned to excel at cooking just to attempt to make my marriage work. I don't think there's a lot else I would have done at that point, but I did also write, at least I can make myself happy. I suppose somewhere deep down, I knew that that was all I really could do. If you find yourself or someone you know in this situation, continue to work on your own happiness and do things to improve your self-esteem and confidence. Do your best to hang on to your values and interests. These skills will help you find a way to make changes when you are ready. They're also good skills for life in general, whether single or in a healthy relationship.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'll share some thoughts first. No, I think as you were talking, I was trying to think of a way how I wanted to put the first thought or the first impression that I was having to words. Not usually a problem for me, because normally I just sort of have them, but it was more of this sort of sensation or feeling of not the ubiquity. Thank goodness it's not that it's ubiquitous that folks are in relationships where that sort of thing happens or is the norm, but that you don't have to have been abused as a child or other things to have those things read as normative in the context of our cultural expectations, especially that are put on women, not exclusively, but especially that are put on femme folks. So just so many things that either from our perspective as professionals or looking back on our own relationships, etc., we might be able to see with 2020, like, oh yeah, no, that was fucked. That in the moment, a whole lot of shit can fly under the radar of getting noticed as fucked because we have a fucked narrative in our society of what normal is, right? I mean, how many rom-coms aren't essentially reducible to stalking wins? I don't know, right? Anyway, that just was what I was thinking, was just how many of those things are both simultaneously obvious and not at all obvious, right? Like that. There you go.
Yeah.
Nice dialectic.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to respond on that. It absolutely can look very normal and can feel very normal. And that is definitely due to some things in society and to our prior relationship experiences. And when we are looking at whether or not a person is in an abusive relationship or toxic relationship, we want to look at where the overall power dynamic is. Who does one person have more power than the other? If it feels safe to talk about these things with that person, can you safely have a conversation? And ultimately, do you feel happy and do you feel safe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you have thoughts you wanted to share, Michelle?
I did. As soon as you kind of started describing the scene, Kate, of, you know, he's playing video games and you put this effort in to prepare this meal and then you bring it to him and you're clearly really excited and feel good about the food that you made. And then he, you know, just kind of the sense that I got as I was imagining it kind of playing out in my mind is that he just didn't really see or acknowledge what you put in to this. It was just not appreciated. And I don't know if either of you know this song, but there's a song by the one and only Taylor Swift called Tolerate It. And I was thinking about the lyrics to that song because it's literally about a woman who's preparing for her partner to come home, and she talks about how she sets, you know, the table with like the finest dishes and how he just tolerates it. He doesn't actually appreciate it or value what she's doing. And so you describing this made me think of the lyrics in that song. And just how that alone, which, yeah, can be really subtle. That's why I think this is actually like a great chapter that you picked to read about. Because it's just, it can be those little things that get planted where it's like, like, where is the enthusiasm? Where is the connection? You know, yeah, like, where is the appreciation here? For him to not really express to you, like, wow, thank you so much for putting in the effort to make this meal, like, or to even say something like, yeah, I'm so looking forward to eating it with you, like, just a couple quick minutes, or like something. I just sensed that his whole tone and mannerisms and feel about him was just, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right word, but just kind of like, about this meal.
Cavalier.
Yeah.
Yes, but the part that makes it, it's not just that, it's also the put downs, right? This is not what I would have wanted. This is not like, I don't want this. It's not good, basically, is what he is saying. Like, you're not ever going to cook steaks the way my dad cooks steaks. So
yeah,
don't cook steaks. Like,
yeah, totally. Like, my heart actually like kind of sunk a little bit when it actually got to that point where I'm like, okay, you know, because I hadn't read this chapter yet. So I didn't know what was going to happen as you were reading. So it's like, okay, they're sitting down. All right, he stopped playing video games. Now they're sitting down for dinner. Okay, it's maybe going to get like a little better. And then to hear those comments that he made when he actually started eating it, I was like, ooh, ouch. Like, he's missing the point, which isn't like how well you cook steaks. It's about like the intention and being considerate of your experience, like thinking about how would those comments land for you and just being kind rather than, yeah, what he was, which was, I don't know, harsh.
Right. And
yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And when you look at it, just this chapter, it is so easy to go, well, I don't know. Is that abuse? Right. And it might not be in your situation. It very much might not be. But the thing is, how do you feel? How do you feel when you experience something like that? And did I feel safe to talk to him to say, hey, that doesn't feel good? No, I did not feel that.
Yeah, which I actually think rolls into my next question really well, which is like, what are some things that you maybe wish people knew about toxic relationships that maybe don't get talked about enough in mainstream media, but that you know about from your own lived experience and your background as a therapist?
Yeah, thanks. I think the biggest thing that I like to try and address is like, why do people stay and what is a toxic relationship? Just the kind of general, right? So, people stay because of the psychological mechanisms that come in with a toxic relationship. So those being a lot of emotional abuse is what kind of comes at toward the beginning before anything more larger comes to play. Which anyone can Google the power and control wheel, and you can see all the different types of abuses there, and some of them can feel really subtle. So people stay because it's so subtle at the beginning that it's kind of confusing. And it's also, there's the love bombing that brings person in from the beginning. I think we all talk about that, right? And then there's this cycle of violence and trauma bond. And every time there is a type, any sort of abuse, whether it be emotional or physical or otherwise, there is a big feeling of emotion, right? A big feeling of cortisol, plus you love the person. So you also still have a feeling of oxytocin of somewhere in your body. And so you're merging the oxytocin and the cortisol with that other person. You're forming a trauma bond. And then there's the cycle of violence, which is the tensions building, the leading up to it, right? That whole chapter was leading up to him putting me down and leading up to other things that happen through the rest of the story. And then there's the actual abuse that occurs. And then there's the honeymoon and making up. Okay, everything's good, right? Like in that chapter, in that scene, you know, he puts me down, and then I'm sure I like, okay, everything's fine. Like, you know, we've made up, quote unquote. Anyhow, every time that cycle happens, the it's another trauma bond happening through that cycle of violence. And so you get more and more connected to that person, and the method of control gets greater and greater, and the amount of emotional abuse that is happening gets greater and greater. And so the self-esteem gets smaller and smaller. And so it is just like a quicksand sort of feeling. And that is how people get into it, and why it's so hard to get out of it.
Yeah. I think I read in, maybe it was like your introduction to the book or something like that, you stated the statistic that it takes people an average of like 7 times trying to leave before they actually do. Can you speak to that a little bit of like what, and I know of course every person's situation is so unique to them. There's no one size fits all here in any way, shape, or form. But just like for you a little bit, and maybe you wind up sharing, I'm sure you wind up sharing this in the book. What for you helped you leave the relationship that you were in and get to that point where you walked away? Because it is so hard to do.
Yeah. Let me address both parts. So yes, it's an average of 7 times. And that what that can look like for each person is very different. I just want to really highlight this because each time a person walks away from an abuser and comes back to them, they're at a higher risk for more violence. And the time that a person leaves an abuser, that's when 55% of homicides occur. That is a chance and a time to get murdered. So yes, the statistics are 1 in 7, but please don't be one of those 1 in 7 people who then it's a very high chance of being killed at that time. So when you are considering leaving or considering making your plan to leave anywhere along your journey of even possibly thinking about leaving, I do recommend for anyone and everyone to call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, or you can text them or you can chat with them, and they will give you resources and point you to your local resources, and they will help you to make a safety plan so that you can safely leave and do that in a way that you're ready to do that. And so you're not going back and forth, because the going back and forth is a part that you put yourself in the most danger.
Yeah, no, I think that actually goes well into the next question, which finally, I guess, reorienting back to the DBT a little bit, which is for people who are still in a toxic relationship in this moment, what DBT skills do you most recommend for, making it through, surviving, being in that situation?
Yeah, I think cultivating mindfulness, and I say this carefully with a caveat, I think having a mindfulness to where you can learn to feel safe in your body for just at least a couple minutes in order to go, what is the appropriate response? Because when you are noticing that a person is scary, when you are feeling scared, then the best thing to do to keep yourself safe is to appease them. And so if you can find your own moment of mindfulness to say, okay, I recognize that this is wrong and I don't feel good, but what is going to keep me safe in this moment? So keep yourself safe and alive in that moment, and then find help.
Like, it reminds me of the discernment bit, right? When we talk about with mindfulness, to some people confuse the idea of not being judgmental with not, for instance, attuning to safety or things like that, but really emphasizing the idea that being mindfully aware of a situation might be the biggest thing that does drive your behaviors towards safety, is just being aware and trying to trust yourself. What's going on there.
Absolutely. And then I guess the caveat in, if you are in a place where you do feel very unsafe, having too much time in mindfulness or meditation is going to feel really scary in your brain. So you want to keep your brain safe too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like you talking about mindfulness, though, as like a way to practice just like really being in touch with and trusting yourself. Like when we're actually paying attention, I always butcher the John Kabat-Zinn quote, but on purpose, in the moment, or, whatever it is that he says about mindfulness. When we're actually doing that with ourselves, how much value there can be there. Because especially when you're in an unsafe environment, whether it's, physically unsafe or emotionally unsafe or whatever it is, it's like so much of that focus can be on what is the other person going to do next? What are they doing? What do I need to prepare for? Which on the one hand makes perfectly good sense. And on the other hand, then we're not paying attention to ourselves in that, how we're really feeling and what we really need and that kind of a thing.
Yes.
So,
and when
I love that you're highlighting mindfulness there, because that's, so foundational to all the other DBT skills that happen.
Yes. And also just want to add to that, when in mindfulness in these moments, you're also going to help prevent yourself from getting gaslit. Because if you're only in your emotional mind reacting, you're not really actually going to be remembering what's happening. And you're more easily confused by what they're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. My next question kind of circles back around a little bit to the conversation we were just having a moment ago about when somebody reaches the point of actually leaving the relationship. Mm-hmm. So let's say they are at that point where they're, say, making preparations, they're taking those steps to leave the relationship. What DBT skills do you recommend for people in that stage of things, who are in that mentality of feeling ready and wanting to go?
Yeah. So always make a safety plan with a therapist or an advocate before you start leaving, if possible. But I would say distress tolerance. So you're picking your battles. Because again, you really want to keep the peace, even though you are probably so fed up with this person by this time and you have so many emotions with them, you still need to keep yourself alive. So your distress tolerance to be keeping yourself safe, and radical acceptance for yourself in the situation. I know what situation I'm in. I know what I need to do. I'm not accepting it and that this is okay, but I have a deep awareness of what is happening in this moment.
I love that. I love folks who are, I don't know, willing to promote radical acceptance while recognizing that it doesn't mean what it can sound like it means, right? It's not accepting where you are. It's not accepting what that other what that other person is doing is, acceptable. It's merely acknowledgement of reality as reality is.
Yes.
Which I know most of the folks that I've seen exit relationships definitely needed to have the holy shit light bulb moment, right? Of radically accepting what sort of relationship they were in the first place, right? Before they were going to get there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Radical acceptance is like sometimes the catalyst for all the practical steps that follow, like the safety planning that you were mentioning and stuff like that. I like that you kind of also too just named the distress tolerance module as kind of a whole. Like I can totally see how accepts or improve or self-soothing can really play into that. Like when you're in that time of like, you're preparing, you're kind of on the cusp of leaving, and how important it's going to be that in those really, really scary moments, like when I say scary moments, I mean like the internal scary moments. Like even if everything's fine externally at that time, like you're okay externally, but internally you're just freaking the fuck out of like, what am I about to do when all of this, like, distress tolerance skills could be really, really helpful there to tend to yourself. Totally. I agree.
Since we're sort of moving through the spectrum, next on in the questions are, what DBT skills might you recommend to folks who are actually in the space of sort of the aftermath, who are looking at healing after having gotten out of a toxic relationship? What DBT skills do you see as helpful for a person in that stage?
Build mastery and building positive experience, because the key thing after you leave a relationship is that you're rebuilding yourself again. When your self-esteem has been worn down, when you become the codependency becomes dependency in a toxic relationship. So you're doing all the things they want to do. You're answering all the questions they want, the way they want to be answered. You're making choices the way they want. You're anticipating what they want. So when you leave a relationship, there is this holy, oh my gosh, moment of who am I and what do I do now? What do I want for dinner? I have no idea. There's too many choices.
Yeah.
So building mastery and positive experience to build up back who you are.
I love that. Yeah, I think a lot of those, but neither of those get a lot of attention in like big life spaces. So I like both of those skills, getting that idea or being able to come in and be real pillars, right, of that sense of rebuilding self and building a life worth living, and all of that after you've taken out what was the pillar, the sort of rotten pillar that you were building your world around. How do you build a new foundation, a new pillar to build yourself around, which is yourself, right? How are you building up the pillar of self? In that way.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so we, of course, right, it's DBT and me as the podcast, but I also really wanted to kind of open up the floor more broadly, since you have so much wisdom to share with us, just again through your own lived experience, but also like working with so many people who have been in these shoes of being in toxic relationships. Like, so if we take it outside the DBT box, as you just spoke to, with quite a few skills that could be helpful for people in all stages. But outside of DBT skills, what are some of the things that you commonly find yourself talking about with people who are maybe, I don't know, like they're in the toxic relationship, they might just be kind of like awakening to that, or like really starting to see it for what it is. And so they're like not at that space of wanting to leave yet, or like they're just kind of like grappling with it and feeling pretty stuck. Like what kinds of things do you find yourself talking about with them or recommending to them when they're at that point?
Yeah. So I have 2 charts I like to use. So I do a lot of psychoeducation and looking at power dynamics in my work. And that mainly because, well, for lots of reasons, but because if I can show a person the information, then they can read it and make a decision for themselves. Because when a person's in a toxic relationship, like I was saying, like that person's not making decisions for themselves. So I try to give as much information to empower the person to make the decision for themselves. So 2 different things. One is there's the power and control wheel, but there's also its mirror, which is the equality or nonviolence wheel. And so it has all the other versions of like trust in a relationship, respect in a relationship, right? And so I will use that as an entry point into what things do you have on this wheel? And then if once a person feels ready and open, okay, well, are there things in this other wheel then? Then we can maybe look at the nonviolent one, but I'll kind of start out with like, you know, what would a relationship look like that has all these things? Who are people that you have these things with in your life? And sometimes they can name a friend or a family member or something, and sometimes they can't, and that's okay. And we have a fictional example, and that's fine too. We just look at where is a healthy relationship that they can kind of see the difference, so they can start doing their own compare contrast. And then the other thing is, sorry, a tiny plug, but it's free on my website.
Please plug away.
Yeah, plug away. We like it.
I made a codependency versus healthy relationship chart that if you subscribe on my website, katemageau.com, which I'm sure you'll put how to spell it in there. But you can get that free chart when you subscribe on my website. And so it will just show you what are things that you see in a codependent relationship versus in a healthy, balanced relationship. And I think this is a really good entry point as well, because codependency is kind of how it starts. People are building their lives so enmeshed, and then it moves to dependency if someone is taking that power away. And maybe it stays in codependency, but also doesn't feel healthy. So it's still good to know about.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I kind of think of like, we've used kind of 2 terms today, right? Toxic relationships and abusive relationships. And maybe some of the distinction there is that codependency is toxic, which can then, like you're saying, sort of lay the foundation for like abuse to start to grow and take root. And maybe sometimes it does, or sometimes I don't even want to say this phrase. I don't even want to say like just stays toxic, like, because that's so damaging. But yeah, that's great that you have those resources. I think we'll definitely make sure to post. I'm taking notes as we're talking. So all this stuff is going to get posted in the Facebook group for people to go back and look at. But that, I remember, I don't even know when I heard this concept, but the first time I ever heard the term of somebody talking about like green flags in a relationship, we talk about red flags so often, and just like be on the lookout for the red flags and the warning signs. And it's like, you can maybe have a relationship that you're in where you don't see maybe even a lot of red flags, but if you're not seeing a lot of green flags either, then that's problematic. So I love that you mentioned this resource about basically like green flags, the equality and nonviolence wheel.
Yes. Yeah. And if you're not seeing green flags, you're not seeing red flags, then what are you seeing? Maybe it's time to take a deeper look and see what's really there. Yeah. Because you're going to see either. Because those 2 mirror each other.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Totally.
When folks have left, be it DBT, not DBT, whatever, what would you point towards for folks to start their healing process?
Ooh, rose-colored glasses.
There you go. Perfection in the self-promotion. Perfect.
Yay! Rose-colored glasses. Are we on video also, or
We're not on video,
but you guys can see
but
it.
we will
You all
definitely
can see
post. No, and I didn't get to see the pretty cover. I like the cover.
Thank you.
We'll post a picture of it. And
great. Yeah, so rose-colored glasses is it is such a tool for anybody who is in it, who has been in it, who has a friend. Like, you can prevent with this, right? It's really a tool for anyone. And I also have a workbook, the Healing from Toxic Relationship workbook. So there's a way to just learn all the things through this workbook. And then on my website, I also have a course, a self-driven video course. So however you want to learn, I have a method for you.
I love this. Man, I love when folks turn themselves into resources in such a fantastic way. Your passion for all of that definitely shines through with how many different ways you try and approach it and how accessible you're working on making it with folks.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very important. Yes.
Well, is there anything else that you would like? I mean, again, you've already given some amazing resources for our listeners, some that are just kind of general resources like the Power and Control Wheel, some that you were just naming that you've created, which is amazing. Are there any other resources out there, either stuff that you have as offerings or just, I don't know, books, podcasts, websites, other general things that you would point people in the direction of?
Yes. Let me do one personal and one non-personal.
That works.
Also I'm ADHD, and I have some information on ADHD assessments and autism assessments, if that's something that you are interested in, gender affirming letters. And I also am doing training for other therapists who want to do ADHD and autism assessments in their practice. And I also do coaching if you're not in Washington or Florida, where I am licensed. And I am going to start a coaching program for other people who want to write their own memoirs, because I think it's such a powerful healing tool. Yes. And for other resources, the National Domestic Violence Hotline website is incredible. It has so much on there. You can make a safety plan right on their website. You can find the Power and Control Wheel. You can learn about the cycle of violence. I've put everything and packaged it into my book and course and workbook, but the information is out there for free also. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. As you were sharing some of your more personal stuff, right? Like doing the assessments and coaching for writing memoirs and all that stuff. I mean, Kate mentioned it briefly at the beginning, how you and I met at a networking event, but we didn't really say what the nature of that networking event was. And you're proving the point, because that networking event was all about speaking to how therapists can have diverse income streams. And we can do a lot more than just one-on-one therapy. And you are a walking testament to that with all the different offerings you have. So, yes, as you're listing the things off, I was like, yes, this is why we were both at that networking event. That's exactly it.
Yes, it is.
I love it. That's too perfect. All right. Well, then, I think that's about to take us to the closing moment. As per usual, if you want to be a guest or if you want to add things for our Q&A or just give us questions, please feel free to email us at dbtandmepodcast@gmail.com or join the Facebook group, as we mentioned at the start. And unless anybody has any objections, I'll roll into closing moment.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you again, Kate, so much for being a guest and sharing everything you have with everybody today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been really great.
Okay. So take a moment and just get comfortable in your bodies. Whatever that means or looks like for you today. That could be sitting, standing, laying down, walking. whatever feels good and right in your body. And if you feel safe and comfortable doing so, I invite you to close your eyes. To begin with, we're just going to notice our breath. You don't need to breathe any more slowly or any more deeply than you do naturally. It's just about tuning in. Just about really focusing in on the rhythms and the sensations of your breath and letting them welcome you into your body and into the present moment. So for today's closing moment, I'm going to go through the Bill of Rights that was shared with me by Kate today. While it is aimed at those who are survivors of toxic and abusive situations, it absolutely contains statements that are powerful and moving and important for us all. So I'm going to take the time and I'm going to slowly read out each statement from this Bill of Rights. And I would encourage you as you're listening to go ahead and repeat the statement to yourself, either out loud or in your head, after I say it to you. And take a moment to tune in and just notice what thoughts or feelings or sensations come up for you in association with that statement. So the first one reads, I have the right to be me. I have the right to put myself first. I have the right to be safe. Again, just repeating the statements and bringing your mind back to the statements and your breath, if and when your mind wanders. The next one reads, I have the right to love and be loved. I have the right to be treated with respect. I have the right to be human, not perfect. I have the right to be angry and protest if I am treated unfairly or abusively by anyone. Still repeating after me, the next one reads, I have the right to my own privacy. I have the right to my own opinions and to express them and be taken seriously. I have the right to earn and control my own money. I have the right to ask questions about anything that affects my life. I have the right to make decisions that affect me. Still just repeating after me and noticing whatever comes up for you. No right or wrong answers. Just regrounding yourself in whatever you notice. Continuing to read. I have the right to grow and change, and that includes my mind. I have the right to say no. I have the right to make mistakes. I have the right not to be responsible for other adults' problems. I have the right not to be liked by everyone. And finally, I have the right to control my own life and to change it if I am not happy with it as it is. If any of those statements really caught your attention or really brought up a lot with you, I invite you to look this up or we'll post it and sit with these statements. See what catches your attention and why. But for now, you can gently come back to your breath, to your body in the room. Maybe take a couple of slow, deep breaths here. And do some gentle stretching if it feels good and right in your body. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Kate, for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
To learn more about us and the DBT skills we're teaching each week, join our Facebook group. Simply log in to your Facebook profile and search for DBT and Me Podcast.